Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. I mentioned in episode 462 that I'm doing a new training program called How to Be a Transformative Principal. It's for those who are in their first 3 years of being a principal, or assistant principals, or aspiring principals who want to level up their game right now. Join me at jethrojones.com/how2be. How to be. We'll see you there. That's jethrojones.com/how2be. Welcome to Transformative Principal. I am so excited to have Sara Sonnenschein. I knew I'd mess up your name as soon as I started thinking about it. So I'm just going to call her Sara Sunshine, which is how she prefers to be called. She's a principal in New Jersey and has been a principal for 8 years. And before that was a teacher for 19 years. So Sara, welcome to Transformative Principal.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you've invited me onto this podcast. I feel honored to be part of this Transformative Principal family and people who are listening. And I really hope that I can give everyone who's listening a little bit of my experiences and help them be a better principal or teacher.
Yeah, well, I think we're definitely going to do that today. So I reached out to you first because you post occasionally on LinkedIn this little thing called A Day in the Life of Principal Sonnenschein. And Sara, I think that's really cool. And you posted a really vulnerable thing on there the other day about a situation that you encountered. And I so appreciated your vulnerability and recognizing that you didn't have all the answers and you wanted to be better and do better. And I just thought that was really cool of you to do. So tell us a little bit about these posts that you do, A Day in the Life of Principal Sonnenschein.
Okay, so I started doing it a little way back when I watched a video about a principal. His name is Principal Akbar Cook. He's also a principal in New Jersey.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And he is just so incredibly inspiring. I was so inspired by that video where in the video he talks about how he studied, he researched, like he tried to figure out why so many of his students were missing school, and he realized that a lot of the kids didn't have washing machines at home, and so they wouldn't have clean clothing to wear. So he installed a complete laundromat in the school that he's a principal at. And I just was so inspired by him. And I realized something when I watched that, and that was that we have so many opportunities to help kids with things that are really out of their control. And if we would just open our eyes as principals and teachers and really listen to our students and listen with empathy and compassion and try to figure out what is making their life difficult, then we could help them. We really can. We have the power to help them. And so the Day in the Life of Principal Sunshine was an opportunity for me to stop every day and see if I can find those opportunities. And by forcing myself to write about them, I helped myself look for them in a more active way. And that's how it started. It wasn't really for other people, it was for myself.
Yeah.
And that's how it began.
Well, the cool thing is that a lot of things that we do for ourselves end up helping other people. And you got a ton of people who replied to your comments about that vulnerable position about dealing with a teacher in your school who was frustrated by something that was going on in you. And the teacher's misbehavior or bad behavior did not overshadow your desire to improve yourself. You owned the situation and said, how could I do this better? That's a mindset issue. That's something that you have to believe at your core you need to do, that you're the one who's responsible for solving problems. You're the one who can make things better yourself because you own the solution to the problem as Richard Shell says. So how did you develop that attitude in your life, especially as a leader?
That's a hard question. I mean, any attitude or character trait that you have, I mean, how does it develop? It develops by self-reflection and meditation and thinking about things and trying to be the best person you can be by reading up about people. I mean, I have so many heroes and people I look up to. Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, I could name, so many people that have influenced me directly and indirectly. And as a teacher, just watching principals, how they acted. I'm sure you've read Bernstein Bears and the famous line, "This is what you should not do." The dad says, I'm teaching you what to do by doing it wrong, and this is what you should not do. But so lots of things I learned from watching people do the wrong things and saying, I'm not going to do it that way. I guess it's just like we said before, like a personal journey. You go through different things and you realize how you want the kids to see, feel and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's really important to learn from watching other people. And sometimes you watch people do the wrong things, and so you say, I'm going to do a better job. And sometimes you see people do the right things and you say, I want to be just like them. And you've shared both examples today. Well, you've hinted at the negative example. Can you give an example of someone, one of your leaders in the past, or somebody else that you've learned from and said, I do not want to be like that in the future? Because you already shared the great example about Akbar Cook.
Well, my own personal experiences with elementary school and high school. I had many negative experiences as a student, and so many times when I've said to myself, why do the teachers have to treat us in such a disrespectful way? The assumption that I was trying to do something wrong when I knew as a child that I wasn't. I was trying to be the best I can be, but instead of having that assumption, I always felt like I was somehow pushed into a corner and not raised. Instead, I was pushed down. And as a kid, I always that was one of the reasons I became a teacher, is because I said, I am going to show the world. When you're a kid, it's the whole world to you. School is the world. And I said, I'm going to show the world that teachers could respect kids and find what they're good at and inspire kids and empower kids. And I'm going to show the world that learning could be fun and exciting, because I always loved to learn, but I hated to learn the way they taught, boring and monotonous. And so.
Yeah, well, I think that's such a good example. And I was in a similar position as a student in school where people assumed the worst about me rather than assuming positive intent, as Melinda Miller talks about on this podcast. And I think that helped spur me to say, I want to be a teacher and help kids. I want to be a principal and help kids also. And it definitely shaped me into who I am today. And I think that's really powerful. John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. The latest John Catt publications include a book whose bold, transformative ideas amaze and infuriate people around the world, according to one reviewer, a title from global leaders in curriculum planning, practice, and retrieval, one book that says stop talking and start doing with regard to teacher well-being, and much more. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in our show notes at jethrojones.com/podcast. In thinking about the impact that you're having on your school now, what is the legacy that you want to leave for your school? What is the thing that you want to walk away from saying, I did this and we can be proud of that?
That's a great question. Because it's like a big picture question. And when you're a principal, there are, your day in life becomes very small. Every day is just so many different details. And so it is important to keep that in mind. I think that what I want my legacy to be is that I want kids to have fond memories of school. And I want kids to know that adults could be caring and compassionate and loving. And I also want to be that role model for kids so that when they get older and they're in a position of authority and they become parents and possibly teachers or principals, they know there's another way, because unfortunately, even in today's day and age, there are many schools that's not the norm, where kids are not always treated with respect. So I want them to know that this model exists because they experienced it, and that should be normal. That should be the way things are.
Yeah, that should be normal. That's a great way to phrase that. There shouldn't be any surprise about it that it's happening. It should be what you expect and what you get also. I do want to change gears just a little bit here, because when you and I were talking, you brought up something else that I think is really fascinating, and it's your work on curriculumhq.com, which I think people should definitely go and check out. But you do a lot of work to help kids learn how to write. And I, as a former English teacher, think that communication is the most important thing that we can teach. And instead of calling our classes English language arts or something like that, or English or language arts or whatever the case may be, we should call them communication. And if we took that approach that we are helping kids communicate, which is what I did as a teacher, that was my whole role, was to help kids learn how to communicate. Then we would change things. We would change things a lot for them. And so teaching kids how to write effectively is really important. So tell us a little bit about the writing work that you've done and that people can get to learn how to teach their kids to write, and why that's so important.
Okay, I love that you said that, because today I was in a classroom, in the 6th grade classroom, and they were making a bulletin board for the PTA that's coming up on Wednesday night. And the teacher had divided the class into little groups, and they each had to write about one subject. So the group that was writing about the writing subject wrote a little paragraph about it, and the last sentence was, "We're almost finished writing our feature article, and we are looking forward to our writing." So I went into the classroom and I told the girls, I said, "I'm so happy that you're looking forward to your next writing. That's great. That's fantastic." I said, "What would you like to write next?" And so they told me that they want to write letters, because last year they wrote letters. They all wrote to different companies and different people, and some of them got responses, and their eyes were lighting up, and they were remembering about those letters that they wrote. So that communication that you just said, I really, that resonates with me a lot. So about my writing programs, I agree with that concept that we need to teach kids how to write, because writing teaches kids to express themselves. It helps with their thinking. It helps to get them thinking, and it gets them to own whatever subject they're writing about. And I feel that is the most important thing we can do for kids, is we can help them love to learn. When they own the subject that they're learning about, writing about, researching about, it becomes a whole different kind of learning. It's not me telling you what to do. I know I'm the kind of person who hates being told what to do. Mm-hmm. So I think most kids are like that as well. So when you tell them, we're going to be writing a research paper, but you can choose what you would like to research, or even if you narrow it down, you say, we're going to be writing about a country, but you choose the country that you would like to research. We're writing a letter, but you choose the person you'd like to write to and what you'd like to ask them. So you give them that ownership of the material and the content, and I find that kids just take it and fly with it, and they love it. Instead of a chore, it becomes something that they enjoy, and it becomes something that they really invest their time and effort into. Mm-hmm. So basically, the way it works is I created these workbooks. Here, I'll show one to you. Here's one. You can't really see it so well, but basically, there are 10 different topics that kids learn to write, 10 different essays. There's personal narrative essay, different types of letters. There are nonfiction types of essays, biographies, things like that. And each essay writing is divided into, is in a workbook format. And what you'll see on the website is that I created also an online course, which helps the teacher basically go through that type of essay writing. And it gives the teacher, along with each lesson, an explainer video of how to present the lesson. But when I sell it as a workbook to teachers, because many teachers just want to use the workbook, then I give them like a PowerPoint presentation telling them how to use the workbook. So it's either or. You don't need, obviously you don't need both. But right now I'm selling, every time I sell this program, it's only sold in the workbook format. So far I have not sold it in the digital format. And so that's how it works. And basically the kids go through the steps. The skills are very broken down. I'll give you an example. If you're writing a personal narrative, so the first skill would be, what is a personal narrative? And it will teach the kids, it will tell them that a personal narrative is so-and-so. The second skill is make your selection. So it has the kids decide on what personal narrative they would like to write about. The third skill would be descriptive writing. When you write a personal narrative, then you need to use a lot of words describing your story, so on and so forth. And in each writing and each essay type, the skills are broken down. The students are taken from skill to skill, and all the work is done in the workbook so that by the time they finish the workbook, they have a completely beautifully written essay.
Yeah, that's really good. And, when I was a teacher ages ago and I would teach my kids how to write, I found that if I could give them a framework for writing, then they could break it down from there. And once they knew the framework, then they could expand on it and be able to communicate much more effectively if they had that framework to start. Otherwise, they stare at a blank page and think, I can't possibly do this. I have no idea how to even start. And so by giving that framework like you're talking about, at least I think that's what you're saying, then...
Exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because writing is that type of subject where it's very different than any other subject. In any other subject, we teach the material and we expect the kids to master a specific skill and then follow the steps to those skills. But with writing, we're asking the kids to dig deep within themselves and express themselves. And you're not holding their hand. They have to come up with their own ideas, and they get scared by that. And it is scary. It's scary for adults also. You'll find many adults who say, oh, don't expect me to write an essay.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to write anything. But it's the same thing with kids, because you can't tell them that if you do this, A, B, C, D, you will get 100. In math, we have that. In history, we have that. But in writing, you can't say it. But what I did with these programs is I did do that. What I have is a rubric at the end of each program. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a very detailed rubric. And the rubric has the skills broken down. And if you include every single one of these skills in the rubric, which are all taught in the workbook, in your writing, then you get an A. So it's very clear.
Yeah, so there's a formulaic way to write that makes sense, that people understand, that works. You think of the Journey of 1,000 Heroes by Joseph Campbell, or the Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and you can see that there's a way that we communicate that makes sense and is effective, and it goes beyond that to writing as well. And so when you talk about it as communication, an adult may say, I can't write an essay, but then you say, well, teacher or person who's employed, could you explain to your boss why you need some sort of investment in your work to be more successful? Well, of course they can. And that's essentially what an essay is. A persuasive essay, at least, is communicating that, or an argument essay. And that's where, if we can teach those skills early, they don't have to be scary, like I'm not a writer or anything like that. And the amazing thing is that they're not scary when kids start out, but we teach them that they need to be afraid of it by not explaining clearly how they can be successful in writing, because everybody can be successful in writing, and then they can grow and develop beyond there.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's change gears just a little bit more, because you have this idea for Curriculum HQ that would be really amazing. And can you explain that to us succinctly and briefly so we can understand what your vision for that is?
Yes, I can try. It's just a big idea, so I don't know how succinctly, but I'll try my best. So I have this idea, and the reason why I called curriculum headquarters to begin with is because I started out with this idea. And the idea is that there are so many talented, incredible educators out there, whom many of them I have met through Zoom or whatever. And they have incredible ideas, and they've created some incredible curriculum. They have courses, teacher training courses, professional development ideas, all kinds of things that would enhance and empower educators. The problem is that everyone I've spoken to have, they're all on these. They're all on their own. They're all trying to do it on their own. Some of them have been like made their things into businesses and are trying to sell it, but they're basically like within a very small radius of people that they can reach. And so I had this idea to create sort of like an Amazon for educational resources, where just like you go on Amazon and you can basically type in any category of anything and get it. So I would want teachers to be able to go on this website and be able to search for any kind of resource that would help them in their classroom, or principals in their schools, or homeschooling parents for their own homes, and be able to see what's available out there and be able to meet different people who have created things, set up a Zoom call or see a video or whatever it is, and be able to tap into those resources. That's the idea.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is somebody could come along and say, you know what, I need a new writing curriculum because what I'm using just is not reaching my kids. So then they come in and look for writing curriculums, get ideas about what each one offers, and then buy it right then and there and be able to access it without having to go find Sara down the street who's doing this, and Jethro who's doing this, and some other consultant who's doing this. This guy I follow on Twitter, Caleb Hicks, he talks about how education is so decentralized and how that is a good and a bad thing, because every teacher can close their door and do whatever they want, basically, and with relatively little oversight compared to a lot of other industries. What do you see as the benefit of having a central repository like this?
I think the variety, the capability of as a principal being able to access these resources that right now I'm not able to access. Like I'll go specifically, let's say in the category of professional development. There are many people out there, like you mentioned before, this Miriam Campbell, who's creating a SEL curriculum or whatever it is. I never heard of her before. Imagine if I can go on a website and see what's available, what's out there. Now with Zoom, we can, we have a lot more easily accessible ways of meeting people or getting trained virtually. So I just think that there's so much out there and I don't have any way of getting to it.
Yeah. So Miriam Campbell, you're talking about, that was episode 470 of this podcast. People can go check that out. And she talks about RTI SEL, or SEL in an RTI framework, and how to develop and give that really powerful stuff. She's doing some great work with that. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. So in closing, Sara, what is one thing that a principal can do to be a transformative principal like you?
I think that a principal is the educational and instructional leader in the school. And you said something before that's very sad, to think that teachers could just go into their classrooms and close the door and there's no oversight. I actually think that that's the job of the principal, to make sure that never, ever happens. I think that principals are in that position to make sure that they know exactly what's going on behind those closed doors, whether that means walking into the classrooms on a daily basis, whether that means, collecting plan books, meetings with teachers, meetings with kids, meetings with parents, whatever that takes. But that should definitely not be in the cards at all, that there are classrooms with closed doors and the people in charge don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. Yeah,
great. If people want to connect with you and actually help you build Curriculum HQ, how would you suggest people get in touch with you, Sara?
I would love that. I would love some help. They can email me at curriculumhq@gmail.com. They can reach out through my website. I would welcome all help.